Have you ever sat down to concentrate, yet within seconds, your mind starts chasing every noise, memory, or urge? You blame yourself. You think, why can't I focus like others? But what if I told you, it's not that you lack focus. It's that you've been trained to react, conditioned by constant notifications, shaped by overstimulation, rewarded for speed, but punished for stillness. Your mind isn't broken. It's responding exactly the way it was taught. And until you unlearn this pattern, focus will always feel just out of reach. Focus is not about trying harder. It is about remembering how to return. The modern mind is not undisciplined by nature. It has simply been pulled, trained, and wired to chase distraction. What monks understand is that reactivity is not failure. It is a signal, a moment to pause, to observe, and to gently guide the mind back, not with force, but with rhythm. Focus then becomes less about control and more about relationship. There's a lie many people have come to believe, that they're weak because they can't focus, that their lack of concentration is a flaw in character, a failure of discipline. But the truth is, distraction isn't a reflection of weakness. It's the result of training. You didn't choose to become distracted. You were conditioned to. Bit by bit, moment by moment, the environment around you taught your brain that stillness is uncomfortable and that reaction equals productivity. And now, even when you want to be present, your mind automatically prepares to flee. When you were young, focus came naturally. You could get lost in play, in exploration, in a single moment without noticing the world around you. But as you grew, the world replaced that natural focus with noise. Notifications trained your brain to expect reward at every click. Apps trained your emotions to crave stimulation. Algorithms pulled your mind from one topic to another, never giving it a chance to breathe. Eventually, your brain became addicted to novelty, not because you lacked control, but because repetition rewired your instincts. That's how learned distraction works. It happens in layers. One moment of unnecessary urgency becomes a pattern. One habit of checking your phone during silence becomes a reflex. One afternoon of multitasking becomes a daily routine. And soon, your mind can no longer tolerate quiet. It leaps from thought to thought, window to window, never staying long enough to feel depth. You've become a master of reaction, but at the cost of focus. Monks understand this process well. When they begin their training, their minds are no different than yours. Reactive, scattered, pulled by memory and desire. But instead of punishing themselves, they study the pattern. They notice how quickly the mind moves when it's uncomfortable, how easily it escapes the present. And instead of trying to shut the mind down, they slow it down. They introduce gentle structure, morning rituals, walking meditation, single task presence. Over time, these choices begin to reverse the years of reactivity. Your nervous system isn't disloyal. It's just trained. And that's good news. Because what is trained can be retrained. Every time you interrupt a distraction, you're not fighting your nature, you're reclaiming it. Every time you resist the urge to check your phone, you're telling your mind, we don't need escape to survive. Every time you pause before reacting, you're building a new signal into your system, one that chooses clarity over chaos. But this training doesn't happen in grand gestures. It happens in the quiet. In the decision to sit with discomfort instead of running from it, in the willingness to finish one task before starting another, in the courage to leave a moment of silence unfilled. These acts may seem small, but they're revolutionary in a world built on speed, and over time, they change your brain. You'll begin to notice it in subtle ways. Your thoughts won't jump as fast. Your attention will linger just a little longer. You'll start to enjoy the pause between tasks instead of fearing it. You'll no longer feel the urge to fill every gap with scrolling, tapping, checking. This is the return to presence. And it doesn't come through punishment. It comes through practice. Distraction is loud because silence is unfamiliar. But monks know that silence is not the enemy. It's the space where healing begins. When you remove unnecessary inputs, your mind doesn't go silent instantly. It resists, it fights. It floods you with urges to do something, anything, to break the stillness. That's the withdrawal. The detox from decades of reaction. But if you stay, if you sit with it, breathe through it, wait long enough, the noise fades, the body softens, the mind clears, and in that clearing, you find the truth. You were never incapable of focus. You were just never given the space to develop it. You were never taught to hold your awareness gently. You were never shown that attention isn't a resource to be spent. It's a power to be guarded. This is why monks return to the basics. Breath, movement, presence. They aren't trying to escape the modern world. They're learning how to live in it without being consumed by it. And you can do the same. Not by becoming someone else, but by returning to the version of yourself that still remembers how to be here. The world will not stop demanding your reaction, but you can stop offering it. You can choose which thoughts deserve your energy, which emotions deserve your voice, which moments deserve your full presence. And each time you make that choice, your mind learns something new. It learns that peace doesn't require silence. It requires attention. It learns that calm isn't found by removing all noise, but by not letting every noise control you. And it learns that focus is not a talent, it's a trained return, a rhythm, a choice. So no, you don't lack focus. You were simply trained to react. And now, you are untraining that habit, breath by breath, moment by moment. That's not weakness. That's mastery. That's the monk's way. And it begins right now. Reactivity has a seductive energy. It gives the illusion of power. You get a message, you respond, you feel anger, you speak, you feel fear, you move. In these moments, it feels like you're in control. You're doing something. You're taking action. But monks understand that most of what we call action is not conscious choice. It is unconscious reaction. And this reaction, repeated daily, is not harmless. It chips away at your inner peace. Not all at once, but slowly, subtly, silently. In a distracted world, reactivity feels normal. You've been rewarded for speed, for answering fast, for staying in the loop. But speed without clarity is just movement without direction. And every reaction pulls energy from you. It scatters your attention. It accelerates your emotions. And after a day of constant reacting, you wonder why you're exhausted, even if you didn't do anything physically demanding. Because it wasn't your body that was working. It was your spirit that was being drained. Monks are not free from emotion. They feel anger, they experience fear, they get overwhelmed. But what separates their path is how they respond. When a monk feels a wave of emotion rising, he doesn't ride it blindly. He watches it, he breathes, he creates space. In that space he asks, is this action necessary, or is it habit? That single question is a gateway to freedom. Because once you pause, truly pause, you become aware, and awareness is the beginning of discipline. Reactivity thrives in urgency. It survives on unconsciousness. It doesn't give you time to evaluate. It demands obedience, and the more you obey, the stronger the pattern becomes. You begin to identify with your reactions. I'm just an anxious person. I'm quick to anger. I overthink everything. But these are not identities, they are habits. habits rooted in a nervous system that hasn't been trained to pause. Monks understand this deeply. That's why their lives are structured around rhythm. Their days are not built on how much they can get done, but on how deeply they can remain present in what they do. Presence doesn't mean slowness. It means choosing each movement, each word, each breath with awareness. So even in action, they are not reacting, they are responding. And there is a world of difference between the two. Reaction is impulsive, response is intentional. Reaction drains, response restores. Reaction creates chaos. Response creates clarity. You feel the difference even in the smallest moments. Think about the last time you reacted in anger. You may have felt powerful for a moment, but afterward there was regret, emptiness, a sense that something slipped out of your control. Now think of a time when you breathed before responding, when you took a moment, softened your body, and chose your words. That moment gave you dignity, strength, presence. That is the difference monks train for. But this kind of response cannot come from information. It can't be learned from a quote or remembered in the heat of stress. It must be practiced daily. Monks use breathing, movement, stillness, not to look peaceful, but to become familiar with the pause. Because when the body is used to speed, the pause feels threatening. It feels like stagnation. But when the body is trained to pause, that pause becomes sacred. It becomes a reset, a recalibration. You may think you're too busy to pause, but every reaction costs more time than a breath ever will. One quick word spoken in stress can create days of conflict. One impulsive decision can derail weeks of progress. But one breath, one full, aware breath, can interrupt all of that. It's not weakness to pause. It's power, silent, focused, grounded. Monks also understand that not every reaction needs to be fixed immediately. Sometimes the most powerful action is to sit with discomfort, to not reply right away, to not solve what doesn't need solving. Because urgency is not always truth. It's often just noise dressed up in emotion. And the more you respond to noise, the more your inner world becomes chaotic. That's why silence is part of the monk's path. It's not a rejection of communication. It's a devotion to clarity. Silence gives the mind time to process, time to understand, time to transform a feeling into wisdom. When you act from silence, you act from power, not from fear, not from habit, but from understanding. So the next time you feel that rush, that spark to say something sharp, to make a quick choice, to react out of habit, pause, breathe, ask yourself, what am I serving by doing this? My ego, my emotion, or my awareness? That question alone can shift your life. You don't need to become emotionless to find peace. You need to become conscious of what your emotions are asking you to do, and whether that serves your higher self. You are not your reactions. You are the one who notices them, and in that noticing, you reclaim your energy, you reclaim your focus, you reclaim your freedom. Reactivity may feel productive in the moment, but it is spiritually depleting over time. And once you begin to see the cost, you'll start choosing differently, not from pressure, but from peace, not from fear, but from presence. And that shift, repeated daily, is how you stop reacting and start living. Most people try to fix their focus by forcing their mind to concentrate. They push harder. They try to block distractions. They get frustrated when their thoughts drift. But monks do not discipline the mind through force. They train it through awareness, because awareness is not control. It is clarity. And once clarity returns, focus becomes a natural consequence, not a battle. Awareness is the first discipline that gently restores the mind's ability to choose where it stays and how it moves. Imagine sitting in a quiet room with the intention to concentrate. The world around you is still, but inside your mind, there is noise. Thoughts rise about your past, your future, unfinished conversations, to-do lists, small annoyances, and deep fears. You tell yourself, I need to focus. But each attempt feels like a struggle. That's because you're trying to fight your thoughts instead of observing them. You're trying to wrestle the mind into silence instead of understanding its rhythm. And that resistance only adds tension. Monks take a different path. They begin by becoming aware, not of just what they are thinking, but how they are relating to those thoughts. They ask, am I following this thought unconsciously? Am I judging myself for thinking it? Am I reacting to it as if it's true? This awareness doesn't suppress the mind, it reveals it. And what is revealed can be worked with. You cannot change what you haven't first seen clearly. Awareness brings light into the dark corners of your thinking. It helps you recognize your patterns. Maybe your mind always drifts when you feel discomfort. Maybe it races when you face silence. Maybe it avoids focus because focus requires you to feel what you've been ignoring. These aren't flaws, they are signals, and if you meet them with awareness instead of judgment, they begin to shift. Training awareness begins simply. You notice where your attention goes. You observe how long it stays. You catch it when it leaves, and instead of reacting with frustration, you return it with gentleness. Over and over, like guiding a child back to the path. This return is not weakness, it is the foundation of focus. Not holding your attention perfectly, but learning to bring it back with kindness each time it drifts. Monks use the breath as their training ground, not because breath is magical, but because it is always here, always present. When the mind drifts, they return to the breath. When emotion rises, they return to the breath. When distraction appears, they do not panic, they breathe. In that breath, they create a pause, a moment of awareness, a chance to choose. And with every return to the breath, the mind learns to stay just a little longer. You can bring this into your life with small shifts. Start noticing your attention in daily moments. While eating, are you tasting or are you scrolling? While speaking, are you listening or rehearsing your reply? While walking, are you aware of your steps or are you lost in thought? These aren't moral questions. They are awareness invitations. The more you notice, the more power you reclaim. Awareness also changes your relationship with time. A distracted mind feels rushed, even when there's no reason to be. It jumps from one thing to another because it doesn't know how to stay with the present moment. But an aware mind slows down time, not by changing the clock, but by fully inhabiting each minute. That's why monks often seem calm even during simple tasks. It's not that life is easier for them. It's that they are more present in the doing, and presence removes the chaos. But awareness is fragile in the beginning. The modern world pulls it away constantly, with alerts, screens, noise, urgency. That's why training awareness requires sacred pauses. Daily rituals where nothing is expected of you except to notice. Notice your breath, notice your tension, notice your thoughts without merging with them. And with each pause, you build the capacity to stay, to see, to choose. Over time, this practice transforms everything. You stop getting lost in distractions so easily. You stop believing every thought that passes through. You begin to focus, not with tension, but with trust. Because you've built a relationship with your attention, you've stopped fighting your mind and started understanding it. And that shift from force to awareness is what allows focus to deepen. You don't need to eliminate every distraction in your life. You need to become more aware of when and why your attention leaves. Because when you know the pattern, you can interrupt it. You can return. And the return, again and again, becomes your rhythm. So stop asking, why can't I focus? And start asking, where did my attention go? And why? That question will open more clarity than hours of pressure ever could. And in that clarity, your focus will begin to breathe again, not as a forced skill, but as a natural expression of your trained awareness. That is the monk path, and it begins with your next breath. Pause for a moment. Take one breath, deeply, consciously. Let this breath remind you, you are not here to chase focus, you are here to return to it. If this message resonates with you, subscribe now, not just to follow this journey, but to practice it with presence. Each day, we build a new rhythm, breath by breath, moment by moment. Let's walk this path together. Not in reaction, but in awareness. There is something sacred in repetition, not the kind that comes from unconscious habit, but the kind that arises from mindful ritual. Monks understand that the mind, when left untrained, defaults to reaction, it follows stimulation, it obeys impulse. But the moment you introduce ritual, consistent, intentional action done with presence, you replace that reaction with rhythm. And rhythm is how the mind learns to stay steady in a world that constantly pulls it away. Modern life is loud and fast. Your nervous system is fed urgency, distraction, and novelty on a loop. And without conscious structure, the mind starts to believe that chaos is normal, that noise is necessary, that silence is strange. So when you finally try to be still, to concentrate, to focus, to just breathe, it feels uncomfortable. Your hands reach for your phone. Your mind starts solving problems that don't need solving. Your heart races, even in stillness. This is not because you're broken. It's because your mind is trained to move without permission. Monks don't fight this tendency. They rewire it, and they do it through ritual. A ritual is a chosen rhythm. It's not routine for the sake of structure. It's structure for the sake of peace. Ritual says to the mind, here is where we begin. Here is how we move. Here is how we return. That rhythm becomes like a soft drumbeat underneath your day, holding your awareness even when distractions knock. Think of it this way: when you wake up and immediately check your phone, you are beginning your day in someone else's rhythm. Messages, notifications, news. From the very first moment, your attention is being pulled. But when you begin your day with a breath, a stretch, or a few moments of silence, you're telling your mind, we will move from within, not from outside. Rituals don't need to be dramatic. They need to be deliberate. A monk may rise before the sun, walk slowly, fold their blanket, and sit in silence. These aren't chores. They are rituals. And each one tells the body, we are here. We are grounded. We are not rushing to prove anything. We are not reacting to the world. We are returning to the self. In your life, ritual might look like journaling before work. It might be walking without your phone. It might be drinking tea without multitasking. What matters is not what you do, but how you do it. Are you present? Are you aware? Are you letting the ritual hold your attention? Because here's what happens when your day begins with rhythm. It gains shape. Your thoughts stop darting. Your breath deepens. You don't rush from task to task. You transition. And that transition gives the mind time to reset, to recenter, to respond instead of react. Monks use ritual not to avoid chaos, but to carry stillness into it. Their breathing practice doesn't end at the cushion. It follows them into the day. Their awareness during meals becomes awareness during conflict. The rhythm becomes a part of them, and soon they don't need to pause as often. Because they've become the pause. They don't need silence to find peace, because peace walks with them. You can train your mind the same way. Choose one ritual to begin with, something simple. Maybe before every meal you pause for 3 breaths. Maybe before bed you review the day without judgment. Maybe every time you close your laptop you take a walk. These rituals are anchors. And every time you return to them, you're telling your mind, we have a center. In time, these small practices build a rhythm deeper than reactivity, a rhythm your nervous system begins to trust. And when the mind trusts the rhythm, it no longer panics in silence. It no longer reacts to every emotional surge. It knows how to return because you've trained it to. Don't underestimate the power of small, repeated actions. A single breath taken with presence can calm a storm inside you. A consistent morning ritual can set the tone for your entire day. A moment of reflection each evening can keep your awareness sharp. These are not spiritual luxuries. They are tools. Tools to reclaim your focus. Tools to restore your energy. Tools to stop living on autopilot. Monks are not immune to distraction, but their rituals create a rhythm that holds them steady. They are not untouched by emotion, but their rhythm keeps them from drowning in it. And when life gets heavy, as it does for all of us, they don't run, they return to breath, to presence, to ritual. That's what rhythm does. It gives you something to return to when everything else feels uncertain. It becomes your home base. And in that home base, your mind finds clarity, not because everything outside is quiet, but because everything inside has become still. So don't chase stillness, build it. Don't wait for the world to slow down. Slow yourself down, intentionally, rhythmically, repeatedly. And watch as your mind begins to soften, to settle, to stop reacting and start responding. Because in the end, the real discipline isn't in doing more. It's in returning to the breath, to the step, to the moment, again and again, until your rhythm becomes your way of being. That's the monk path. And it begins with one small ritual, practiced, repeated, lived. Most people abandon the journey toward focus because they chase the wrong goal, perfection. They sit down to meditate, to work, to be present. And when their mind wanders, they feel like they've failed. But monks are not trained to be perfect. They are trained to return, again and again, because mastery does not come from how long you can hold your attention. It comes from how gently, how consistently, and how mindfully you return when it drifts. Your mind will wander. That is its nature. You'll start your morning with focus and stillness, only to be pulled away by a notification, a memory, or a sudden emotion. That moment is not failure, it's opportunity. It's the moment where the real practice begins, because awareness is not built in stillness alone. It is built in the returning, in catching yourself mid-distraction and gently guiding yourself back without judgment. Monks know this truth intimately. Their focus is not uninterrupted. It is resilient. Their mind doesn't stay still because it's perfect. It stays still because it has learned the art of returning. They don't force the mind to obey. They teach it to trust the rhythm of return. Every breath, every step, every ritual is an invitation to come back, to now, to presence, to peace. But in the modern world, we've been taught to judge ourselves for drifting. You start your day with intention, and by noon, you're scattered. You close your eyes to meditate, and by the 5th breath, you're thinking about tomorrow. You try to listen in conversation, but your mind wanders to what's next, and the reflex is to get frustrated, to call yourself lazy, unfocused, broken. But that reaction only deepens the distraction. Monks respond differently. They notice, they pause, they breathe, and they return, not with shame, but with softness. They understand that returning is the practice. Every return is a victory. Every moment of awareness is progress. Even if you drift 100 times, returning 101 times is the path. And over time, the distance between distraction and return becomes smaller. The return becomes faster. And eventually, your presence grows stronger. Perfection, on the other hand, is a trap. It creates pressure, and pressure leads to avoidance. You tell yourself, if I can't do it perfectly, why do it at all? So you don't start, or you quit early, or you chase hacks instead of building rhythm. But monks know that depth comes not from intensity, but from consistency. A single breath, repeated daily, is more transformative than a perfect hour of meditation once a month. The secret is not in how well you focus, but in how often you choose to try again. This shift in mindset changes everything. Suddenly, you're not trying to control the mind. You're building a relationship with it. You're learning how it moves, how it resists, how it returns. You stop seeing focus as a finish line and begin seeing it as a rhythm, a dance of drift and return. And that rhythm, practiced over time, becomes your nature. The same applies in daily life. When you get pulled into emotion, return. When you overthink, return. When you lose patience, return. Not by erasing the moment, but by meeting it with awareness. The power lies in the pause. That brief moment where you remember, I don't have to continue in this direction. I can stop. I can breathe. I can come back. That's what monks do. And that's what makes their presence so powerful. It's not perfection. It's their ability to return without resistance. They fall off center like anyone else. But they don't stay there. They don't spiral into self-judgment. They reset, quietly, gently, again and again, until the act of returning becomes automatic, becomes natural, becomes who they are. You can do the same. You don't need a mountain. You don't need a retreat. You just need a breath, a single choice to stop the pattern and come back to this moment. And then the next, and the next. Eventually, you'll realize something profound. You were never that far away. You just forgot how to return. And now you remember. So forget perfection, practice return, not with urgency, not with pressure, but with presence, with rhythm, with grace. Because every time you return, you reclaim a piece of your power, a piece of your peace, a piece of your true self. And in that return, you don't just find focus, you become it. Not as something you do, but as something you are. That is the monk's way, and that is the path we walk. One breath, one return, one moment at a time. You were never broken. Your mind was never flawed. It was simply trained to react, to chase noise, to mistake movement for meaning. But what you've discovered today is a deeper truth. You can retrain it, gently, powerfully, purposefully. Monks don't hold focus because they're perfect. They hold it because they've practiced returning. They know the value of rhythm, of ritual, of repetition. They don't avoid distractions. They rise above them through awareness. Focus is not about holding your breath. It's about learning how to breathe again with presence. Each keynote today was a step back toward yourself. You now know how distraction is learned, how reactivity drains you, how awareness builds resilience, how ritual creates rhythm, and how returning is your real strength. Not perfection. Let that truth stay with you. If this message brought you clarity, presence, or even one moment of peace, don't just listen. Become part of this path. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who's struggling to stay grounded. And then stay ready, because the next part of this series will take you even deeper into the monk mindset. Your focus is not lost. It's waiting to return. Together, we will walk that return, one day at a time.